Hello, good evening.
Good evening, darling.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just introduce you
Sure.
for those of you that do not know you or they know you, but they're going to learn a lot more about you. And let me just get started a little bit. So, Tabitha worked as a professional belly dancer from the age of 15 till today. And she worked in restaurants, she did special events, she worked in Disney. We both worked there at one point. She participated in two competitions in 2013 and 2016, and that's going to come into some of our conversation today. She didn't place in those conversations, but she took some really great nuggets of just like growth and lessons from that experience. So we'll be delving into that as well. A few of these lessons, just to give you a little teaser, is knowing the audience that you're going to perform for. That's pretty big.
Absolutely.
And use of stage, which we can get into, and then building confidence really when you're performing, whatever space that may be. And we're going to get into some of those too. But one of the things that I don't want to get too into it, right? But you kind of were or felt driven out by that
Yeah,
experience that you had in this like traditional competitive environment, just not feeling like it was very supportive, maybe not even like being fulfilled really by wanting to attain like a type of accolade from that for yourself. So for you, it was just more about like the human connection from what we've chatted about and understanding more about the culture, really getting to the root of all that. So
for
lots
sure.
that we're going to be talking about today. But one of the things I like to do is just a quick recap of what is the goal of Let's Talk Belly Dance. It's basically to peel back the curtain and talk about the hard stuff, the things that usually you talk about, not in front of everyone in the public and everyone that you know, but behind the scenes with someone that you really, really, really trust, because they're very uncomfortable conversations sometimes. And there's things that are beautiful, but there's things that are not so great sometimes that happen to you in the industry. So that's a little bit about that. Now you know a little bit about Tabitha. So we're going to be getting into a whole lot. And we think we met at Stellar Advantage,
Hmm.
which was a long time event running in Orlando for like 20 something years, ages ago. We can't pinpoint exactly what.
No,
This was
because we kept
eons
running into
ago.
each other. Yeah. At a bit, so, and we just connected, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's definitely will play into a lot of just a little bit of what I gave you now, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Me, as far as competitions or competitive spaces, for anyone that's known me, I'm no stranger to competitions. Back in my day, I did them a lot, 2010 and 2015, wrote a book on it, judged. So it's something that I feel is really awesome when done with the right intentions, is really rewarding and can pull you through. But there's also, like we'll be chatting about, non-traditional competitive spaces where you can compete pretty hard against yourself
Hmm.
and really grow. So before we get kind of into it, let's just define, Tabitha, if you will, what do you feel is an objective competition? So this could be spaces in the classroom, spaces in like traditional competition, even with yourself. But when we're thinking of like a traditional competition, let's
Yeah.
start there. When you go and you have a panel of judges, what does that mean to you?
So when I think about an objective competition, I think about, some essentially areas that they're going to be judging in. So for example, technique is one of them.
The
Uh,
categories.
musicality, use of stage, and then I don't think I've seen this in at least the competition that I've been in. I think it's something that is kind of missing, but uniqueness of the dancer. I
Personal style.
Yeah, and then of course you see, dress and hair and all of that makeup. Um, those are those little or those labels that they're judging on.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I know. I have some thoughts on those.
Yeah. Tell me about them too.
So, for anyone listening to this, when we're going to start with the talk about traditional
Hmm.
competitions, and we'll get into more of the informal spaces as we go. So, if you've competed, woohoo, hey Sayuri,
I'm sorry.
if you haven't competed, I think this is also food for thought. and would love people's commentary afterwards, you know, or like during, by all means. But when you start sharing all those categories in my head of a traditional competition, I have seen some interesting interpretations of what this means.
Yeah.
Some good, some not so good, and the interpretation. And there seems to be no level ground of how to judge across the group for whatever style, category, level, etc. There's like a general, like, oh, professional, you know, amateur, you know, maybe folklore, maybe melody, maybe, you know, there's different ways you can
Genres, yeah.
yeah, the thing, but how it's judged is sometimes worrying, sometimes wonderful. And so when you mentioned like appearance, right? I can see why there would be a need for, let's say,
Yeah.
something as trivial as appearance when this is a dance competition. But how that gets sometimes put into score sheets, like I've experienced where your nail color and your lipstick don't match your costume, which I think is BS.
Yeah. That's a
That's
perfect
my
point
opinion.
from a dancer.
People could disagree. But things like that. So, yeah. What are some of your thoughts on like the categories and how that kind of felt to you when you were in that competitive traditional space?
Yeah, so technique, technique, everybody has a different technique, but obviously, you know, if a judge sees a rooted dancer versus like a classical dancer, they may judge it differently. I always appreciated the technique category because I feel like that's one of the biggest one that you could grow from. So I always appreciated that um, part of the competition. My prior experience with like costumes or makeup and hair, sometimes they were kind of judgmental. Like for instance, hair. Like, what is who is to say what's the right hair?
Mm-hmm.
Competition. Is it curly? Is it straight? Is it neat? Is it, you know, wild? Every dancer has their own style. So I think that's kind of open to debating. Um, and then otherwise, like musicality, obviously musicality is not a difficult one to judge on. It's how you interpret the music. So that was also a very good part of the sheet, for example. Um, costuming. Um, Costuming, it just depends. I feel that if it wasn't a specific style, for instance, Saidi, then obviously, you know, you want a Saidi style. But if it was Oriental, if they chose like a mermaid skirt or a chiffon skirt for an Oriental piece, as long as they used it right, then, you know, again, that's open to what the want because it's uniqueness. So you get to choose your style and what you feel the most confident in. But those are my experiences.
Yeah. And some of the score sheet stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
It's just like, these are just some call outs in case.
Yeah,
There is room for, I think, always improvement in
for sure.
these
And
type of spaces.
yeah, and score sheets, I mean, are gold. And we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of our talk today is going to be talking about like building community within these type of competitive spaces, and we're, you know, again, we're starting with the traditional one.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me about a time when maybe, you know, the point of these talks are to talk about the hard stuff. So when maybe something didn't seem fair or seemed kind of odd or off or confusing, or just kind of maybe one of those experiences that were maybe really tough to kind
Yeah.
of go through for anyone listening there.
Yeah. So again, this is my experience. I think a lot of people now, especially now, I think competitions are growing and there's more community with the competitors, which is great.
Mhm.
Um, but when I first entered competition, and I was a baby too, um, you know, there was a experience where one of the competitors was a student of one of the judges, and it almost kind of seemed like favoritism. For example, I'm not speaking to the quality of the dancer. I thought she was amazing, but there was definitely a discomfort with other competitors. So you felt a favoritism in a way. So that's one of them. So that was an experience. Um, Another one, I would say, trying to think. Hmm. Um, I can't think about one.
No,
I don't
that's
know.
okay. I think that one, even alone, I have heard of and seen that too. I've also been a judge where I had a student
Mm-hmm.
compete in like a amateur category, and I was like a judge. Usually, I would, and I'm like, no, I don't want to judge the same category
Yeah.
because you know. And they're like, no, no, we don't have anyone else. Like, I was like, okay. And even if you try your damnedest not to be biased, I felt like I was harsher on her
Yeah.
because to make up that I was a judge judging my student, which to me
Yeah.
is like not okay. I don't like that position. I don't. I was never in that position again because I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's definitely a weird position to be in
Mm-hmm.
for sure, no matter what you try. And yeah, sometimes there is favoritism
Mm-hmm.
for sure, which is not cool. But we're human, right? Sometimes we don't notice it or it happens. You go,
Or
you
know biases in
know.
life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So try to avoid that if possible. And
Hmm.
I think we've talked about it before when we had dinner.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. How you shouldn't be judging competitions like you have a student or maybe a different
Category.
category.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Tell me a little bit about, because this can go into different areas. So this is a traditional competition mindset. And for those that are listening, they're like, well, where else can we be competitive? And where else can stuff like this come up? When you're in workshops or in festivals, it's not a competition. You're learning. There's a teacher in front. But don't you sometimes feel, maybe in some instance, or if you haven't felt it, it may come about where sometimes there could be a little bit of like strong dancers kind of hogging the front or maybe not making way, or when they say change lines, they don't change line,
Yeah.
like there could be some form of like really informal, kind of like silly, almost competition going on. And you're there to compete, really like to make
For
yourself
yourself.
better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it may not be like a judge student type of scenario, but you may have some of these kind of informal instances where like not the sponsor, forgive me, the organizer, maybe the person that's the instructor for that workshop, their students are there and they may get favoritism. Like you'll see bias in a lot of different ways in the industry. And so one of the things that I really enjoy about you is like you have such a great mindset about really what does it mean to compete and who are you competing against, even whether it's a formal or something informal like a festival like I mentioned, or even by yourself in your room competing
Yeah.
against yourself in the mirror or the
Mhm.
videotape. Tell me a little bit about that because I think your viewpoint is very awesome, on point, and like really positive.
Oh, thank you. So in terms of competing, um, like you had mentioned when you were introducing me, I kind of got driven out by the competition just because I didn't feel like I was gaining what I wanted. So I exited, you know, in any creative passion or passion in general to be able to create your own path.
Hmm.
My path was um,
Say that
when
again.
I said my path wasn't in competition, so I didn't feel like it was. Um, so to circle back into my mindset, and it's competition against yourself. And I as any dancer should be competing against themselves. Of course, wonderful dancers that you can look to as like idols or people that can drive you, or even which you should like support system. Um, but you should be competing against yourself and looking for events and things that make you grow. So when I'm competing against myself, I'm looking for things like growth. I want to grow. And if I don't see that I will grow, that's not something that I would entertain. Or if you try it, because part of growth is trying, um, then you have to find growth in that, you know. Uh, Aside from that, I would say definitely when I'm competing with myself, I also want to kind of um, show myself through my dance and connect with that audience and every dancer, right? That's our goal. We're a physical representation of the music, and we need to make that audience feel what that music does to the musician and to us. So those are things that I kind of refocus on when I'm thinking about competing, especially if you have like moments of weakness, because we all do. We all have moments of weakness where we might compare ourselves against like one just because we're human. And you just have to refocus on that and say, you know, I'm me. I bring to the table something that someone doesn't have. That person has on the table that I don't have something beautiful inside them. So, yeah.
Yes. And it's applicable. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways for anyone listening that may be like, well, how the heck do I compete with myself? Right? Like, I think
Yeah.
it might be helpful to give maybe some examples or like
Yep.
ways that consistently help with to bring the mental, like the mindset back. I do want to share that this is very applicable, whether the traditional competition space, the festival, like I'm going to keep repeating, and by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like personally, I've told you before, in the competition space, I met some fabulous freaking friends. Later became like sponsors, or we sponsor each other, or like just
Yeah.
friends. Like we just travel and like see all the world together through
Mm-hmm.
that. And festivals, oh my gosh, how many people
I know. Yeah. I mean, we're so
met.
connected by festivals is what keeps us connected. That's part of our community, which is amazing.
It feels like a family gathering
It
every
is.
time.
Yeah.
When you like just allow yourself just like meet people and open your heart, and then you know it can be really tough, especially for like the more introverted one can be. It could be a little tougher, right? But you can have a friend that's an extrovert and help you make the connection if you need a little boost, or if you just want to come out a little bit and just pick one person. Like it's just fun. But you can meet some amazing people and dancers instead
Absolutely.
of competing and comparing. Just be like, oh my gosh, I really admire this. Or like, holy cow, like this is so cool to just get to meet them. And even on your own, like that mindset of what you're talking about, like the growth,
Mm-hmm.
and then how you kind of, it almost like feels like energy, like the energy you emit through the music and with the
Yes, girl,
people.
that word. Yes.
Okay, the energy,
Yeah.
you know. What are some ways that you have found that that applies, whether it's you yourself at home, where you can apply that and shift the mindset,
Mm-hmm.
or in a public performance space?
Um, so let me talk about like a public performance space.
Okay.
Um, I think, you know, maybe everyone feels this. Some people are just like, I'm out there and I'm like great and I'm feeling really confident and strong. But sometimes some people feel, you know, some butterflies, like some serious nerves. Yes, we talked about this for sure. You know, because you're sharing so much of yourself. So when you have those moments of weakness, definitely a great time to reflect. Like, okay, I am Jennifer, and I am this dancer, and I'm bringing that here. And let's say you bring that energy and you just don't feel because we're like our worst critics.
Sure.
Um, if you bring that energy and you don't feel like you gave like 110%, then you say, you know what? I learned this, I did this well, and I'm so proud of myself because I was me and I brought myself to that stage, and I continue to grow from that.
Seeing the silver linings and the lessons in between, for sure. Oh, hi, Valentina.
I love you.
I hyperventilate. I used to never even get nervous, ever. And then probably after COVID, I get so nervous to perform. I almost hyperventilate. It's like a thing.
Yeah.
But but yeah, like thinking positive thoughts was definitely helpful
Yeah.
for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're alone and you're competing against yourself in
Mm-hmm.
your own room or your living room or wherever it is that we can find a space or a place to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, we could be our own worst
For sure.
critics.
Yeah.
I sure am like super hot, but I always
Mm-hmm.
have been. I'll see a video and I go, no, 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 we're gonna do this better, we're gonna do this better, I'm gonna prove it until it reaches the said goal in whatever timeline.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see competing against yourself and when you're by yourself in
Mm-hmm.
your own space or place?
Yeah. So to speak on that and to also kind of give examples in a way kind of highlighted or foreshadowed on it, videos. When you're dancing on your own, I think it's super important to video yourself. I've always videoed. Do I like to video? Like for instance, do I like seeing old videos all the time? No, I don't think a lot of us do. Like we'll see the old videos and we're like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? Or, if you don't think you're like like, oh gosh, I did this, but I should have done this. But look back at those videos because you're competing again against yourself. You could have done a move better, maybe utilize, what you did then, try something different there. Let's say if you're building a choreography for an event, a festival or something, you can see how you can shine better with different movements, different videos. So you're essentially your own competition in that way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, definitely, even if like referencing old videos when you were younger, if you have, those videos saved, which most of us do, thanks to social media, um, look at those and see, sometimes they have some good stuff.
Yeah,
Some
that's true.
stuff you haven't used. Like use it again and just make it make it what you dance like now and more stronger. But yeah, that's how you compete with yourself. You just look back at yourself and continue to build upon your repertoire and keep growing.
It kind of segues me into the process of a proper critique.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is something I feel, in my opinion, some people can disagree, but a proper critique seems to be something that doesn't quite exist or isn't formalized yet in our industry.
Yeah.
When I compare this to my music and my art degree, like these things in the past, it is very, like, exactly.
Rigid.
The whole
Here.
class, like everyone in your face tells you in a really respectful manner what was strong and what needs work,
Yeah.
right? This still has a way to go, I think, in this industry, as I mentioned. But when you are by yourself, like an example you gave, yes, you have these minds that you can look at video, you have these tools and techniques. But then what does you, looking at your video, you have the mental aspect of, well, what are you seeing or not seeing? I think it's dependent too. So you kind of have to lay the foundations of like, well, what am I critiquing when I watch my video
Mm-hmm.
or when I look in the mirror,
Yeah.
or I take a picture or whatever maybe? Is it, I don't know, is it where's my weight shift at in my feet, or how are my transitions, and maybe critique that,
For
like,
sure.
or how does this look in this angle where this is versus this angle as I'm creating this piece? How is my emotionality looking versus this
That's a
as
big.
I'm practicing this piece?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that, because I'll see, a lot of people are kind of say, oh, I have trouble like doing regular practice. This is like a very known, like we all go through it,
Mm-hmm.
having a regular
Get out
practice.
and then jump back in.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So regardless of what that looks like when you do practice, okay, well, what are those categories? And what within those categories do we define and what creates good versus not good to you. And I think that's another facet to
Mm-hmm.
it when you're looking at your own stuff. like like was that good or was that not good? What does that mean to me? Like what does good mean to me and what does not good mean to me?
Yeah, so I think everyone's is going to be different, just like you mentioned
Mhm.
to you, right? Um, when I critique myself in videos, I'm specifically looking for things that I have analyzed in myself that I still need to work on. So I will look at those videos and just to lay it out to understand like how maybe give an example to everyone watching
Please, please.
themselves. Um, so I'll look at emotion for that's always been a hard thing for me. I'm very like joyful
Yeah.
and hyper.
Emotionality is hard for you. I'm shook. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one. So I'll look at it and I'm like, okay, in the context of this ballad or um, ballady or shabby, like, am I playful? Am I more romantic? Or you look at your face for that. So that's one of the big ones for me, emotion. Another one is I always want to expand upon use of stage, and I think I mean for all of the dancers that look to compete, that's super big in competition is using the stage and not staying in the center. So if I'm not moving around or utilizing travel steps with good flow, right? How can that better? What have I utilized or used or learned that I can kind of apply here and then play with it and then watch a video again and play with another one. And so that's a second one. And then third, um, this has been a big one for me in the last, I would say, 2 years, is variation. And what I mean by that is level change, right? Right? So level changes, am I using that in my dance? So I think it makes for a more dynamic dancer. So yeah, those are my things. What are your three?
For
Or
sharing
maybe you,
that. For me, it depends on whatever. I call it a project.
yeah.
I'm so type A. It's like all task management.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it depends on, like the project, like the piece. So let's say I might have a song that's extremely emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a tada, maybe the lyrics within it are really intense. So for me, my emotionality comes, honestly, it's always been very simple
Mm-hmm.
for me. But what is difficult for me is to do really intricate work and give a dynamic of really soft and flow when you have something that's so emotionally charged, because I'll just want to expand all day
Mm-hmm.
or get too intricate. So there has to be a balance. So I'm always looking for the dynamic is the word. The dynamic between soft and flow and emotional, let it go, just let it pour out. And then, okay, I need to showcase this musical intricate part because it only happens here. And I want to make sure that composer gets their vision, in this part. So dynamics can be something that alone, like for that project, that'll be the thing that like drives and is the North Star versus something else, which might just be, did I get the style? Is it more authentic? It just depends on the project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're wonderful at that, by the way.
Wait, say that again, girl.
I think you're wonderful at that, by the way.
Oh, cool. I'm working on it.
No,
Thank you.
you're
Trying.
you're wonderful to watch. You're definitely a treat to watch anytime. I think you definitely have focused on that and have grown in that area too.
Thank you. Thank you for seeing it. And I have seen you grow. We're gonna have a fangirl moment. I've seen her for a while. And I told you, I think 2 years ago, I was like, girl, okay, I like what you're doing a lot lately. Like I can tell you've been drilling it and working it, and it's like you can tell there's something consistent happening behind the scenes for sure. Because it's kind of like I look at the Tabitha 10 years ago and I look at the Tabitha today and I go, oh, she's pushing herself here. Oh, she cute.
Oh, thank you
She's
so much.
making me feel every performance. you know, whether it's giggly or like, oh, the diva came out, like I'm getting a different character, which is super cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That
Mhm.
means the world.
We dancers, yo, you can be also in a competitive space
Mhm.
and totally like fabulous competition.
Yeah.
But like good competition, like it's good to push each other. And I think we've chatted about this too.
Hmm.
Like you when you care for someone, you want to see them reach whatever their potential or goals that they've expressed
Hmm.
are, right? You're not just going to be like, oh, do this, and you don't even know them, or like they didn't even ask for your feedback. But if they're like open to your feedback, there's someone that you really care about, you can totally be in the same like genre. Like you and I are in the same genre.
Hmm.
We both, you know, gig and had parties. We both, you know, have competed. We don't, and you could be like so cool and just lift each other up
Yeah.
at all points of their journey, you know? And you're totally different, but in the same like categories, let's say,
Hmm.
right? That's super cool. That's just, like should be the I think
The
the
norm.
that should be the norm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
honestly, it's grown to be that
it's got
now.
better.
And I feel like, for example, like going back to like festivals, um, we have refocused on community, which is great because that's what we are. We're a wonderful community. And a lot of the events that are now being put on, just to like name a few, like Love Affair,
Mm,
um, River City,
mm,
uh, any intensives,
mhm.
I think are focusing on building community within that, but also building each individual dancer, which before, and I was a baby, who knows? Um, I felt like that wasn't really um, a motivation or at least a feeling. Now, or maybe it's because I'm 30, who knows?
Explain
Now,
more. Like, what made you feel like it wasn't there in your view? Because I don't quite get that. I don't have clarity on it. Like, what do you
so
mean?
I feel like, for example, like when I was competing, I didn't feel a full-on community or push of each individual dancer within that event. Like the big festivals, for example, like where they have, I don't know, six international stars,
Mhm.
and you have like a full maybe 3 5 day weekend. It's hard for a dancer to capture something. Let me rephrase that. Capture a lot to build upon their dance. Does that make sense?
Oh, you're talking more about like when it's just like really, really big in general. You
Hmm.
maybe you say community or the participant like getting like one-on-one feedback in a way, like more personalized
Or
experience. Okay.
just gaining the knowledge of like one or two dancers or one or three dancers or one dancer, right?
Okay.
That knowledge, not one person, like workshops, right?
Okay.
Um, that individual dancer is taking classes with, or that multiple dancers. Everybody has their goal, right? And they push each other to just be themselves.
Hmm.
Have you like the last few events? I feel like that's been really prominent, which has been beautiful.
I see. I would say, in my view, I love them all the side, big, little, I love it all. I'm like a freaking festival hoe, um, but I will say that when you have a big volume, it's
Yeah.
very difficult to definitely feel the one-on-one, unless
Mhm.
if you are very lucky specifically calls you out in the festival or in the classroom or in the otherwise
Mhm.
it can be really difficult to have that. Yeah, it's a lot and a
Yeah.
lot of people and it's a really, really big space, which is cool
Hmm.
too. but it definitely has a different feel because of that. And that's just the nature of it,
Oh yeah.
you know?
And also, I mean, you can seek it out too, but not everybody, has the confidence or maybe the voice at that moment to do that. Um, so it could be that as well. But I think, now the festivals have been highly focused on the individual dancer and having that individual dancer, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe some examples for anyone that hasn't maybe been to some of the festivals I think that we've been to more lately, or maybe haven't experienced, or maybe they're like, what do they mean? Definitely more specifically, I think that there's something special about getting like a hello from, just something simple as like, thank you for coming, or like, hey, or like them remembering your name, or like something simple like that. When it's smaller and it's more like community based, you'll know the people in your community usually, like it's a little, it could feel really nice.
Yeah.
Simple things like that. Here's a goodie bag, or here's a message, or tell me your story. Give me your picture. That's like one of the things me and Anis are doing. Like we want all the ways of like, how can you meet each other if you don't know each other before? And then during, you're like, oh my God, I saw you already know. Oh girl, I loved your story. Like it's little things like that are kind of permeating or sprinkling through. I know Sayuri with Reminisce, she has like a lunch. She caters a lunch for the participants, which is like super sweet. On like the day.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never had a catered lunch at a festival. Like little things like that. It doesn't have to be monetary, but it could just be a simple like, oh my gosh, you remembered my name, like something like that. Anything.
Or
hello.
To like you guys are doing, Anais. I believe you guys are doing like I don't know if it's lunch, but like a moment to talk with yeah.
The lunch.
Yeah.
We've always done that in our events because it's kind of what naturally led me to do Let's Talk, because I was doing this already at events, so behind the scenes anyways. But back to it. So
we went on a little bit, sorry.
It's okay because all of this is like context for what it means, I think, for listeners, because not everyone goes to festivals all the time. I mean, it's such a privilege to go to a festival, like have the money to, especially in today's economy. So much there. Yeah. Going back to like behind the curtain, some of the tea in competitive spaces. So I think it's maybe apt to share some story time. We've talked about like some difficult things, like when there might be bias in a competitive space, whether it's the teacher and the student in a classroom or in a festival or wherever. We've talked a little bit about a whole bunch of things, but like competing against yourself and like mindset that would be great to have as a baseline where you can compete in your space because you want to be the best for yourself, which I think is love. You've always been such a positive, like, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever seen Tabitha say anything like opposite of any. She's always like, yeah, girl power. I'm like, wow, she is so good. There are times when in competitive spaces where, let's be honest, you have seen, whether it's a classroom or a festival or in a competition, where the person is competing not against themselves but with others. And this is kind of what brings us back to this topic, is you'll see things and you go, oh, that's a little toxic, or sometimes people make assumptions. So for example, you might have someone backstage, whether it's performance, competing, traditional, whatever, and they're really quiet. They just need silence. Someone else may take that as, oh, they're being a butt and they're being mean and they don't want to talk to me, and they think that they're all that. And it may just be the part of their like warm up or process to get into the zone to like
get into their
assumptions about that can be interesting. Or sometimes you do have someone backstage and they're being really toxic. They're talking ish. It's not common, but let's be real. It has happened. you will hear the chatty Cathy's or the chatty Nancy saying some stuff like, I can't believe she went, or what was she wearing? Or you're just like, oh my God. Okay, I'm just trying to get ready and for my hyperventilation to go and perform myself.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yep.
What do you think is something that could help for those that may have that toxic or negative energy
Mm-hmm.
in these behind the scenes type of spaces? Because the audience don't see it, but we sure either secondhand feel it or directly get it.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that? And if so, what would be some words of wisdom?
I wouldn't say I've experienced like Chatty Cathy's that I've noticed, but
Okay.
I'm pretty good at getting out of a space I don't be in. Um, so that's a method, right? So if you are putting yourself out there, you're going to compete, you're ready, you're doing, for instance, you're preparing yourself and you that environment, I would say you can exit it, right?
Sure can.
Yep, you can exit that space. In a polite way, just um, go back to refocus on what you're doing in terms of competing against yourself, right? I'm not here to compete against that person that may be talking about me or talking about the other dancer. No, that's negative. It's like that's not something I want to partake in or even spend and waste time about. You refocus yourself. So I'm here. This is what I'm bringing to the table. I'm going to grow. I'm going to connect with my audience. I'm going to put on the show I want to put on, and just bring positive energy. Bring a light. Because really, you have every has their energy to bring and focus on that. Ignore the negative or get away from it.
Easier said than done, but yes, yes,
Oh
yes,
yes, yes, definitely. There are some moments too, like for example, in it, not necessarily competition, but sometimes this actually does apply to competition, right? Sometimes some people can't exit that and they let it get to them, and then maybe they have a breakdown. Right?
Maybe, yeah.
I've seen that happen before. Don't just focus, kind of contradicting, but don't just focus on yourself and getting your mind right. It might empower you to get that person, like elevate their feeling and make them feel strong. I would encourage people to not only be there for the positive moments of performing, eating, but also be compassionate and be there for the hard one, because that person will be have a more better show, and you'll also feel that energy, creating good energy together. That's part of it, right? You're here to watch each other.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know some of my besties are like really hardcore empaths, so I think it depends on the person. Because some people they are hearts of gold, right? It's just like the empathy meter is really, really, really strong. And so if they see someone breaking down, they will break down with them. Like I think it's important to know your limits too.
Yeah.
Of course, at least say something. Hey, are you okay? Right? If you're like, if you can't emotionally give 100, something.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to know, if you see someone fall, oh my gosh, help them up. If you see someone stab themselves with a costume pin because they're pinning, and then, give them a Band-Aid if you have it, right? But
or if you see someone flustered trying to get a pin in their costume and they're like, oh my God, I'm almost out of it. And you're fine. Help them.
Yeah.
You know how much
if you are not fine, if you are not fine, Then you tell them, be like, listen, boo, I will help you, but I'm I'm a little effed up right now. Give me like a couple minutes, I promise. Or like, amiga, come here. Like, can you help her with her pin? Like,
Yeah.
if you're not fine, like sometimes
Yeah.
you're not fine.
Yeah.
To be real, like I think
No,
people listening will be like, sometimes you perform and the audience doesn't even know. You've had a breakup, you've had a divorce, you're on your period, you're sick, you might have the flu, and you're competing or performing.
mm-hmm.
All these things,
Or you,
injury.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you are a good person, but you're not fine. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need to also be mindful of that and see if you do know a girlfriend right there that she is fine, go tell her
Yeah.
if you're not.
That's, yeah. No, or if you're, you're not 100% in your space, and like, for example, someone asks to take a picture and you're like trying to focus on what what you're going to present or what energy not quite yet. If
Mhm.
I can't do this right now, but I'm gonna go grab someone. I just have to think about something. That's okay. But at least
Yeah,
you acknowledge that person. You're trying to help, but so yeah, you gotta lay some boundaries
yeah,
sometimes too. Life
yeah,
and being adult.
yeah. Saying it like what you just said is so nice. It's different, like the exaggerated version for anyone watching this later. It could be like, no, that would be like, wow,
Yeah,
like of having an attitude. That's a totally different energy and vibe.
yeah.
Like, so all of that. Tell me a little bit about some of your solutions. We've covered some things. I mean, we can go all day, like the rabbit holes of what we see that are like, oh, a little off in the competition festival, classroom circuit. At the end of the day, it's mindset and all of that. What are some of your maybe takeaways or gems from that time in your life that you applied today? Maybe that you got from score sheets or just how maybe you would view competing today if you talk to your younger self,
Mhm.
what advice again or solution for the community?
So definitely, when I go back and think about what I did, one of the biggest things I would say I learned from competition, why it's an excellent reason to compete, kind of challenge and grow. Um, know your audience. Super.
Talk to me more about that. Oh,
Yeah. So,
go ahead. Tell me what you're.
in the festival, are, are you seeing more of an Egyptian style? Are you seeing, sometimes, there's Argentinian style, uh,
American.
American, yeah,
Nice. Uh-huh.
whatever it may be. You have to know that audience because that is the audience you are competing for, in addition to competing for yourself. Um, that's something as a younger dancer I didn't really realize. And I kind of want to expose myself to competition, but also and take myself out of the competition, like Disney, for example. Um, I learned from my competition to assess my audience, and I was able to apply that at Disney for kids and families, unforgettable
Mm.
events, things like that, and just what that type of audience needs. Every audience is different. Every audience is going to expect something a little bit different, and it is a skill to know that audience and how to portray an energy that they're going to enjoy the show and connect with you, basically. So
Mm-hmm.
that's,
Mm-hmm.
um, we talked about this at other in terms of solution, and I want you to speak more on this. You uh, clarified this or explained this in a very clear way. Um,
Ooh, your internet connection is going out.
oh
Hello,
no,
hello. Okay,
my
you're back.
my
Go ahead.
Wi-Fi.
Oh,
So, hey, are you hearing me?
oh no.
Can
Oh no.
you hear me?
Now I am.
Okay, you're a little
Repeat everything.
but oh, perfect. my bars are, I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
now I can for sure.
So we talked about this at dinner. I want you to speak more on this because you said this clearly. So the categories of judging, we
Mm-hmm.
we knew or we realized that we had a different perspective of, say, technique, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think clarification, I believe somebody, let me see here, Joelle mentioned this too. So that's why I wanted to start there and kind of elaborate on that. Inconsistencies of category criteria is something that makes me shy away. We need clarification on that. I know you
Yeah.
have, you know, written a book
Mm-hmm.
on that. So I think that's a solution. Can you speak more on that?
Yeah, in my humble opinion, the judging panel needs to have a meeting with the organizer or whomever before the festival. The score sheet should be explained. What does musicality mean? Is musicality that, I know it might seem simple for some, but it's not. Everyone has, it's an art form. So you have to give some sort of parameters. Does musicality mean that you dance over the music, under the music, that you are doing melody all the time, or that you're really well rounded in all the different lines of music throughout the piece? Some of this may be like, for some people, when they first hear it, technique, like we were chatting more recently about, it could be something where if I am a judge that, let's say, for example, has Argentinian style, which is very balletic, I'm extremely ballet influenced. I'm going to expect when I judge perfectly pointed toes and like high kicks all day.
Mhm.
But if I'm a judge over here that is really well versed, let's say Moroccan folklore styles, I'm okay with having a flat foot and it's earthy and more grounded in the feet. And I would still judge that as a perfect time. Like they're both like, ballet is not the thing, to aspire to. It's just a style.
Mhm.
And you have to, in your judging bias, say, it doesn't matter if it's my style or not. What is the category I'm judging for? And that can look very different, and that's okay. But what is the technique? Is the weight here? Where's the foot placement compared to the knee and the body? You know, all of that has to be explained per category. Looks is not, is your hair curled or not? Looks is, does your costuming, the overall presentation, if you choose to wear jewelry, if not, if you choose to do hair wrap or whatever or not, like, does it fit the style of the music you just chose and the style that you're dancing?
Mhm.
So like, sum it all up. There has to be a meeting to get everyone on the same page of what each category means and answer questions beforehand so that if it's like, what if this comes up or what if this comes up, or people know what to do. Because I shared with you, and some people that may listen to this, I was literally at a competition a few years ago. My friends are judges. I was a spectator, which was so nice. They literally were confused as heck on one of the categories. One part of them thought they were judging one thing, part of them thought it was another. They were super confused. The person that won, I
Yeah.
don't know what won. I don't think anyone did. Not that the dancer was great, blah, 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 but it didn't fit the category I think it was meant to be. And so that's
Mhm.
a problem. And judges were pissed. I think people were confused. I was like inside so mad because I'm like, a meeting would have resolved this. I think there has to be more education.
Mhm.
Your thoughts? Like, get off the soapbox.
But yeah, obviously that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And probably, like Joelle said, a barrier to some answers. Uh, so that is definitely something to look at and create a solution.
Yeah, but I like kind of what you mentioned going back to the beginning is you can't control what the judges will do. You
No.
can't control what the audience will pick. But if you're competing against yourself and you know your criteria, so you're able to know pretty much the categories, they're kind of universal across, or ask someone, you have to say for yourself, what are you hoping to gain from that competition in
Absolutely.
each category? You
Absolutely.
know, audit yourself, and if it's not aligning with what you chose, maybe look into that, right? Like if you're gonna do a folklore category and maybe you're dancing like modern as heck, I mean, maybe you shouldn't do that category. Maybe give it a year or two.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of auditing you
And
can
then
do
come
with
back to
yourself.
it. Yeah.
Oh, there's so much there. Okay, so you mentioned score sheets or goals in the beginning. They really
Yes. So, I don't know if this speaks to solutions, but this is definitely something to learn from. Competition is, and even, I mean, you can apply this to like competing, looking at videos, but score sheet, looking at that commentary, um, using that commentary to your advantage, growing. Those that you seemed weak on, and you were weak, and you have to grow on that. So I still have my score sheet.
so jelly.
They're in my education folder. So those are to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can look back on those too and say, oh, yeah, I remember when they marked me off for this, and now I'm getting like a higher score. If it's a traditional competition, or if it's you in your bedroom looking at your video and comparing a year over year and saying, oh, yeah, I did get more fluid in this, or I got stronger in this. Okay, got it. Um, it's really cool stuff for sure to get like a feedback from something or someone for sure. I like also how you mentioned like the community support as one of those things that you've noticed, and how that's maybe continuing down that path. Maybe give us some insights into like your thoughts around that, how to
Um,
foster that.
yeah. So community is really big for me. That's one of the reasons why I created my own path. And I think everybody has their own path, and you have to decide what's fostering that. Like I mentioned in the beginning, but uh, being part of competition, kind of creating and feeling a competition. Like you're always gonna feel a competition in the sense of like you either or yourself, but a solution to maybe that competitive environment is feeling or fostering community. So, for example, um, being supportive of your girl, right? Being supportive of your friends, whether it be right next to each other, learning from one of the international belly dancers, local belly dancers, supporting your friends in their workshops or classes, um, that they do, the events that they sponsor, uh, even events you don't perform or are participating in the schedule, sharing them, because that all builds community, and we should continue that because it's very
Love
important
that. You
to
do
be
that
the
for sure.
yeah.
And even people you don't know, sometimes you'll see things go viral. You just because why? Because it's
Oh, of
maybe
course.
moved you, maybe inspired you. You'll be like, I don't know that dancer yet, but ooh, they got it going on. Share.
Yeah, exactly. Share people you don't know, because honestly, it touches everybody's heart when you share such a vulnerable part of them. And it's a lot. So foster that supportiveness, and I think that's a great way to continue to grow and to continue to help other people grow.
Love it. I think my only solution on this topic is just like maybe it just goes to communication, clear communication and education. I think that's always like one of the big things of like whether it's a competition, how to judge it, whether it's you and your video, how do you give yourself a critique and a proper audit? In the classroom, what kind of setup do you need to grow well, but also respect the people around you and the instructor, and just always keep that flowing.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that are fab. For anyone listening, I'm going to go ahead and read some comments. If you have questions, leave it below. And I'm going to read, because I know there were a couple in the beginning that you mentioned, like Joelle's, about the inconsistency of category criteria. Something that makes her shy away. And I think when you kind of said that with the shy away, I'm like, Joelle, don't shy away, girl. Just pick the competition that maybe feels right to you, or the space or the place or the show or the performance venue. But kind of like what Tabitha was saying, sometimes you have to like do something to grow from it. So maybe if the category criteria doesn't maybe seem perfect, because there's no perfect system, maybe just trying it out, you're going to learn so much from it, as long as it
Mm-hmm.
feels like it aligns in most places. I love you, Tabby, my girl. So proud of you always and forever. Valentina. I have the book. Fantastic read. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. And if there's any other questions or anything, DM Tabitha or put it in the comments in this video once we publish it after, because we will go through it for sure. Closing remarks and wishes. So for anyone that listens to this podcast interview in the future, if you had to give them a little boilerplate of like, what do you want them to get out of this
Mm-hmm.
in their life moving forward, what would you say?
So definitely compete against yourself is the biggest thing. Yes, competition is great. It pushes you, but overall, when you're competing, you're mainly competing against yourself. That should be your goal. So make sure you're fostering growth, fostering the path you want. Be unapologetically yourself. Foster that. Look for events that support that. Don't. I would say don't feel. How do I say this? Sorry for not doing certain events if it doesn't align with what I mentioned. It has to align with the person that you are and the dancer that you are, and that dancer is a dancer that no one else is.
That's very true. If you see your uniqueness, it's like there's nothing else.
Yeah,
That's all you need.
yeah, and then from like the whole conversation, say you don't only have to compete, compete, also look at yourself, grow. So I think videoing yourself, at least at your old videos, if there's some shyness of taking your own videos, but you can grow from all events and all that you do. What's going on?
It kind of got robotic at the end.
Oh, no.
But I heard about the video.
Yes.
That's where
Yeah, I think that's very important. I definitely think people need to video themselves to learn to compete against themselves.
yeah. I know a lot of dancers that are not a lot, I'm like mentioning that taking videos of themselves may not be the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can take a video of yourself and be proud and critique it properly, it's like the sky's the limit. Like you will be able to respect so much more about what you're doing in the dance, and just like be able to, it's like a healthy way to train your mind, you know?
Oh, yeah. And looking at yourself, because we all have self-image or some insecurities that we have to work through. And that's a way to work through them.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Tabitha.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your experiences.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm literally so touched for your friendship all these years and all the
All right, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, if you have any questions or comments, let us know after, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Everyone.